It was supposed to be a fun night out with friends. My girlfriend, Emma, had been excited about the annual charity event downtown. This was the type of gathering that brought together the whole community, local businesses, friends, and even some familiar faces from high school. Everyone was buzzing about the local strip club, hosting a special night to raise funds for a good cause, and Emma, full of enthusiasm, convinced me it would be harmless fun. We were in a committed relationship, and I trusted her completely, but in the back of my mind, I felt a hint of unease. As we dressed for the evening, Emma slipped into a sleek black dress that hugged her curves perfectly. She looked stunning, and my heart swelled with pride. I wanted to take her out and show her off. As we headed to the event, I couldn't help but admire her confidence, the way she carried herself, and the smile that lit up her face. I had no idea that the very confidence I adored would soon turn into my worst nightmare. The venue was alive with energy. As soon as we stepped inside, the sound of laughter and music enveloped us. The event was set up in a spacious hall with colorful decorations, and a large stage was prepared for the night's performances. Friends greeted us with cheers and hugs, and I could feel the excitement in the air. Emma seemed to radiate joy, and for a while, I forgot my earlier unease. After a few drinks, Emma's laughter was infectious, drawing me into her orbit. We mingled with friends, shared stories, and made toasts, the night becoming a blur of good times. But as the evening progressed, I started to notice something odd. There was a spark in her eyes that felt too bright, a hint of flirtation that set off alarm bells in my mind. I brushed it off, telling myself it was just the excitement of the night. As we moved from one group of friends to another, I felt a growing distance between us. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but I could sense Emma's attention wandering. Then I saw him, a tall, muscular guy with a cocky grin, his body glistening under the stage lights as he prepared for his performance. He was the main attraction, and it didn't take long for Emma to notice him too. The first few performances were entertaining, and I tried to keep my focus on the fun. I laughed along with my friends, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Emma was becoming increasingly enamored with the show. When the stripper took the stage, the atmosphere shifted. He was charismatic, moving with a confidence that commanded attention. I watched as Emma leaned in closer to the stage, her eyes glued to him, laughter spilling from her lips like it was the most natural thing in the world. At first, I told myself it was all in good fun. But as the performances continued, I saw her exchange playful glances with him, her excitement palpable. The knot in my stomach tightened as I tried to ignore the sinking feeling that this was more than just harmless flirting. I felt like a spectator in my own relationship, watching her get swept away in the energy of the night. As the stripper's performance intensified, he started to interact with the crowd, his eyes scanning the audience until they landed on Emma. She beamed back at him, her laughter echoing in my ears, and that's when I realized I was losing her in the excitement. I wanted to confront her, but I held back, not wanting to ruin the evening for everyone, least of all her. Then came the moment that shattered everything. Emma, buoyed by the atmosphere, and perhaps a few too many drinks, walked up to the stage as the stripper beckoned her forward. The crowd roared with laughter and cheers, and I stood there, frozen, my heart racing. I could see the thrill on her face as he took her hand, pulling her closer. In that moment, I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. This wasn't just fun, this was crossing a line. Feeling a surge of anger and betrayal, I pushed my way through the throng of people, but before I could reach her, he pulled her even closer, their bodies moving together in a way that made my stomach churn. I wanted to scream, to pull her away, but the words caught in my throat. The scene felt surreal, as if I were watching someone else's life unfold. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I turned on my heel and stormed out of the club, the cacophony of laughter and music fading behind me. The cool night air hit my face, and I struggled to breathe as my mind raced with thoughts. How could she do this? Did she really have feelings for him? Did I mean so little to her? My heart felt heavy, the weight of betrayal settling in my chest. Outside, I paced back and forth, trying to gather my thoughts. I replayed the events over and over in my mind, questioning everything I thought I knew about Emma and our relationship. She finally emerged from the club, her face glowing with excitement, completely oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. "Where were you?" she asked, looking genuinely puzzled. "I was right here, watching you make a fool of yourself," I snapped back, my hurt spilling over into anger. Her eyes widened as she realized the gravity of the situation. "I was just having fun. It was all for charity," she protested, but the defensiveness in her tone only fueled my anger. "Fun? With a stripper? Emma, that's crossing a line," I said, my voice trembling with frustration. "I didn't mean anything by it. He was just being playful," she replied. But the excuse felt hollow. In that moment, I knew I had to make a decision. This wasn't just a slip-up. It was a sign of something deeper. The trust I had in her felt shattered, and I couldn't ignore the feeling that something fundamental had shifted in our relationship. We left the club in silence, tension hanging heavily in the air. I replayed the events over and over in my head, questioning everything I thought I knew about Emma and our relationship. That night marked the beginning of a slow unraveling as the incident became a turning point in our relationship. The trust that had once felt solid was now fragile, and I wondered if we could ever rebuild what had been broken. The days that followed were a blur of confusion and hurt. I tried to talk to Emma about what happened, but she brushed it off, insisting it was nothing. "I was just caught up in the moment," she would say, her tone dismissive. Each time she said that, I felt a pang of resentment. I wanted her to understand the impact of her actions, but she seemed oblivious. I started to question everything. Did she really care about me? Could I trust her? I found myself scrutinizing her every move, checking her phone for messages, and reading into everything she said. It was exhausting, but I felt like I had to protect myself from further betrayal. As weeks passed, I noticed subtle changes in Emma. She was less affectionate, often distracted by her phone or her friends. The lively conversations we used to have turned into awkward exchanges. I felt like a ghost in my own relationship, drifting through life without purpose. My friends tried to support me, but even their reassurances felt empty. One evening, after a particularly tense day, I decided to confront Emma once more. We sat on the couch, the air thick with unspoken words. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "About what?" she replied, feigning innocence. "About us, about what happened that night," I pressed. She sighed, crossing her arms defensively. "I told you it was nothing. Can't we just move on?" "Move on? You think I can just forget seeing you dance with that guy? You didn't even think about how it would make me feel." I felt the heat rising in my chest. "I didn't mean to hurt you. It was a mistake," she shot back, frustration boiling over. "A mistake." "Emma, it wasn't just a mistake. You crossed a line," I said, my heart racing. "Why are you making this so dramatic?" she snapped. "It was just a stupid night out." In that moment, I realized how disconnected we had become. The love I had for her was still there, but the trust was shattered. It felt like we were fighting over a precipice, and I was terrified of what would happen if I let go. Days turned into weeks, and our relationship began to feel like a weight I could no longer carry. The more I tried to reach out, the more she withdrew. It was as if I was clinging to a fading memory of what we once had, while she was already moving on. Eventually, I reached a breaking point. One night, I confronted her again, tears brimming in my eyes. "Is this really what you want? To keep pretending everything is fine when it's not?" She looked away, her silence speaking volumes. "I don't know," she finally admitted. I thought we could get past it, but I don't think I can." That was the moment I knew we were done. It felt like the ground had fallen out from beneath me. All the love and care I had for her seemed to evaporate in an instant. We were two strangers standing in the wreckage of what was once our life together. A few days later, we had one final conversation. I told her I couldn't do it anymore. "I deserve someone who respects me, who values our relationship," I said, my voice steady. "I can't keep holding on to something that's already gone." She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." As I walked away from our apartment for the last time, a heavy weight lifted off my shoulders. The heartbreak was still there, but I felt a sense of relief. It was time to move on, to rebuild my life without her. Months passed, and while the wounds still stung, I found solace in my friends and family. I started to focus on myself, exploring new interests, and discovering who I was outside of my relationship with Emma. I began going to the gym more, something I had neglected during our time together. I found strength in my own independence, and slowly I started to heal. I learned valuable lessons from the experience about trust, love, and the importance of valuing myself. I came to understand that while relationships can be beautiful, they can also be incredibly fragile. As I navigated through the emotional debris of my past, I grew stronger, ready to embrace whatever the future held. In time, I found love again, but I carried the lessons of my past with me. I learned to trust again, but I did so cautiously, knowing that not every relationship would end in heartbreak. Emma was a chapter in my life that taught me resilience, and as painful as it was, I was grateful for the strength I had gained. Looking back, I realized that the night she danced with that stripper wasn't just a moment of betrayal. It was a catalyst for change. It pushed me to confront my own worth and to understand that I deserved so much more than I had settled for. Now, as I stand on the cusp of new beginnings, I hold on to hope, knowing that each ending brings the promise of a new story waiting to be written. It all started with a typical Tuesday morning. I was brewing coffee in the kitchen, the aroma wafting through our small apartment, as I listened to my wife, Sarah, excitedly chatter about her day ahead. She worked as a marketing manager at a rapidly growing tech company, and I had always admired her ambition. Sarah was driven, passionate, and had her sights set on a promotion that would elevate her career. Little did I know that ambition would soon lead to the unraveling of our marriage. "Today's the big pitch, babe," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "If I nail this presentation, the director is going to take me seriously for that promotion." I smiled, encouraging her as I handed her a steaming cup of coffee. "You'll crush it, I know it. Just remember to be yourself." That day, Sarah left for work, her confidence palpable. I kissed her goodbye, unaware that the kiss would be the last genuine moment we shared before everything changed. As the weeks passed, I noticed Sarah's work life consuming her more than ever. She would stay late at the office, often returning home, exhausted but exhilarated. Her conversations peppered with references to meetings and strategy sessions. At first, I was proud of her dedication, but soon I began to sense a shift in our relationship. There was an unspoken tension, an underlying current of something I couldn't quite put my finger on. It was during a dinner party with friends a few weeks later that I first heard whispers of her director, Mark. He was known for being charismatic and intense, with a reputation for pushing his team hard but rewarding them handsomely for their efforts. At the party, a friend casually mentioned, "Did you hear Mark is taking Sarah under his wing? He sees a lot of potential in her." I laughed it off, believing Sarah had the talent to catch anyone's attention in the office. But as the days went by, I couldn't shake off a nagging feeling. Sarah began spending more nights at work, often returning home late, her phone buzzing constantly with messages. I told myself she was simply immersed in her work, but my instincts were
Love
screaming at me that
your
something was off.
pussy,
One Friday
diamond.
night, after another long day at the office, Sarah came home in high spirits. She had just finished a major project that had received glowing feedback from Mark. "You won't believe it. He said I'm the best candidate for the promotion," she gushed, her excitement filling the room. I celebrated her success, but deep down, I felt an unease growing. Over the next few weeks, the late nights continued, along with unexplained absences. I tried to trust her, but the anxiety gnawed at me. My gut feeling intensified when I overheard a conversation between Sarah and a colleague during a weekend get-together. They were joking about how dedicated she was to impressing Mark. The way they spoke, the laughter, there was an intimacy that made my stomach churn. One night, while she was in the shower, I picked up her phone, curious to see who had been messaging her so often. I knew it was an invasion of privacy, but I was desperate for answers. The messages were mostly innocuous at first, work-related banter, but then I found one that sent chills down my spine. It read, "Can't wait to celebrate our victory together tonight. You've earned it, Sarah. Let's make it special." I put the phone down, my heart racing. I felt the ground beneath me give way as I grappled with the implications. The next day, I decided to confront her. I couldn't let this festering doubt destroy me any longer. That evening, as we sat on the couch, I took a deep breath. "Sarah, can we talk? I need to know what's going on with you and Mark." She looked up, surprise etched on her face. "What do you mean?" "I've just been feeling like there's something more than just work between you two." "I'm worried," I admitted, feeling vulnerable. For a moment, she was silent, her eyes darting around as if searching for the right words. Finally, she sighed. "I promise you, it's all professional. Mark is a great mentor, and he's just trying to help me succeed. But the late nights, the messages, it feels different," I pressed, trying to keep my tone calm. She hesitated, and that pause told me everything. "You're being paranoid. I'm just working hard for the promotion. You have to trust me," she replied, her voice rising defensively. I nodded, but inside, I felt a sinking sensation. I wanted to believe her, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. As the days turned into weeks, my anxiety grew. Then came the fateful night. Sarah had been out for drinks with her team to celebrate their recent success. She promised she wouldn't be out late. I had plans to stay up, waiting for her, eager to hear all about her evening. Hours passed, and my phone buzzed. It was a message from one of her colleagues. "You won't believe what happened tonight. Sarah was the star of the show." I felt my heart drop. My palms grew sweaty as I waited for her to come home, every minute stretching into an eternity. Finally, the front door clicked open, and Sarah walked in, her cheeks flushed, laughter spilling from her lips. "Hey, you won't believe the night we had," she exclaimed, a sparkle in her eye that I hadn't seen in weeks. I forced a smile, trying to hide my unease. "I'm all ears," I said, though my heart raced, knowing I had to confront her. As she recounted tales of the night, I couldn't help but notice how she avoided mentioning Mark. My gut twisted with each passing moment. I decided it was now or never. "Sarah, can I ask you something? Did you sleep with Mark?" I blurted out, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. Her laughter faded instantly, and she stared at me, shocked. "What? Of course not. How could you even think that?" "Because something feels off. You've changed, and I can't help but feel like you're hiding something from me," I replied, my voice trembling with a mix of fear and anger. "I can't believe you would accuse me of that. You're being ridiculous," she snapped, her eyes narrowing. "Am I? You've been distant, and your priorities have shifted. This isn't the woman I married," I shot back, frustration boiling over. Her silence was deafening. I watched as her expression shifted from anger to guilt, and my heart sank. "You wouldn't understand," she finally said, her voice softer. Then help me understand, I pleaded. Tell me what's really going on. With a heavy sigh, Sarah sat down, the fight leaving her. I just wanted to be successful, to prove myself. Mark saw potential in me, and I wanted to impress him, but I never meant to hurt you. My heart raced as I braced for the truth. What do you mean? Did you do something with him? She looked away, shame washing over her face. I kissed him. It was a mistake. I thought it would help my career, but it just made everything worse. The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. A kiss? Sarah, that's not just a mistake. That's a betrayal. I know, she cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. I got caught up in the moment and it meant nothing, but I can't change what happened. A heaviness settled over us as the reality of the situation sunk in. I had always trusted Sarah, and now that trust felt shattered. What do we do now? I whispered, feeling the weight of our crumbling marriage.